This is Matthew Dashner with the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project, and today I'm interviewing Christopher Notestine. And to begin with, could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? For instance, where and when were you born?
I was born in Charlevoix County, northern Michigan. I was born July 26, 1980. I grew up there pretty much my whole life. I mean, I joined the Army in...
Well, could you tell us maybe a little bit about your family?
yeah, sorry.
Because, do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have one brother. He's 4 years younger than me. Young brother. A good family life. You know, both parents were there, and pretty much your white picket fence childhood, I guess. What else?
Any interesting stories from when you were going to school? Sort of, like what helped form your thoughts of going into the Army?
Not really. I mean, I played football. I really was just driving by the recruiting office one day and was like, maybe this is where I want my life to go, and that's where I am now.
All right. What position did you play?
On the line, pretty much, kind of here and there, everywhere.
Oh, all right.
Kind of a bigger guy.
All right. So, went to the recruiters, and can you talk a little bit about that process of going through recruitment?
Yeah, that process was pretty quick. I think I went in there on a weekday, and I was at basic training in like 3 weeks.
Were you 18 at this time, or fresh out of high school?
I think I was 19. I was a year or two after school.
All right. Were you doing anything in between school?
I was a roofer. Just kind of trying to get through the life, get a start.
All right. Could you tell us a little bit about basic training? What it was like for you while you were there?
Yeah, it was an experience, I guess. You kind of start out when you get there. You're like the guys that have been through in basic training and all that stuff are the guys that know everything, and they kind of come in and they try to scare you, and it's kind of a fearful event because they funnel you in a big room, a whole bunch of just regular seats or like bench seats, and they run you through cutting your hair. They shave you down, put you into formations for who's going to be your platoon leader or platoon sergeant, or drill sergeant, and then kind of goes from there. They give you that one night of kind of getting used to what's going on, and then right into the training. So.
All right. And where did you do your training at?
Fort Benning.
All right.
I was 11 Bravo Infantry.
All right. And did you go to AIT after basic training?
I did, but for infantry, AIT is just a good morning. You're in AIT. Now do push-ups.
All right.
It's just smooth sailing right through there. So.
All right. Anything noteworthy or interesting about that time?
Honestly, I don't remember a lot of basic training, but the one thing I can remember is that was my life changer. Joining the Army is what pretty much set me on my career the way I'm at now.
All right.
So.
Can you describe sort of that thought process? What sort of made it that life changer for you?
Yeah, it was more of a. It's such a structured environment that you don't have time to think. You just have time to learn what's going on, and it's it's hard to explain for that. It's just it's a feeling of this is where I belong.
A lot of people talk about where it's becoming part of a community, becoming part of a team, and less of the individual. Did you feel a lot of that?
Yeah, I suppose so. It was for me. It was absolutely. You're right. Yeah.
I don't mean to be putting words.
No. I just have problems with with continuing on. So.
Oh, it's all right. No problem. And what then happened after AIT and basic for you?
AIT in basic, I went on to, I guess I showed like a knack for the weapons and that kind of stuff through the drill sergeants, what they saw. So they continued me on through another couple weeks of Dragon, Javelin, and a couple other weapon systems that they wanted me to have training in before they sent me to my actual unit.
All right. For people that might not know, could you explain what Dragon and Javelin are? Please?
Well, the Dragon is the older system that the Army used for taking out armored vehicles. It was a wire-guided missile that you shot it, and you held it right here and you shot it, and when it fired out, there's four wires that are attached to the missile. So every time you move the control unit that you're holding, the missile will kind of track where that's going, and so you can kind of guide it into where it's going.
All right. And the other weapon system?
The Javelin is the newest up-to-date thing that we have. It can be fired in multiple different angles, straight out, up and down. It is quite a piece of advancement. It's pretty much a game changer for all the infantry guys on the battlefield. So.
Where did you get a chance to learn how to use those? Was that in your AIT? Or?
Yeah, it was the schooling after AIT. So. Yeah.
And where did you head to after AIT?
After AIT, I had like a little lapse where I could go home, and I spent a couple weeks at home. Then I headed out to Fort Lewis, Washington.
All right. Could you describe a little bit of your time at Fort Lewis, what you did there, or some of the jobs you might have had?
Well, when I first got there, we started out. It was 2-3 Infantry. It was 3rd Battalion, 2-3 Infantry, and we were a decommissioned unit that they recommissioned us to become a Stryker unit. The Stryker vehicles, it's a four-wheeled vehicle, up armored vehicle with a machine gun on top, and we were like the spearhead for the whole Stryker change, the way the IBCT, the Infantry Combat Brigade units.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of like, it was the Army's way of bringing together all the units that the Army has, but they don't really talk well together. So like artillery and aircraft, helicopters, and infantry soldiers and tankers, and all of us, they're in the Army. They all got their own separate units, and you can call up and get some help from them. But it's all these chains, the channels that you have to go through to get it. It takes a little bit of time.
Right. Well,
the Army's idea was to bring all these together into one unit, so that the time was gone. You had these assets right here, right now, and it's apparently proven to be very crucial in the fights that we're doing now, because they pretty much transferred everything over to that.
Oh, all right. Do you feel that it's so much more effective?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Were there any problems initially with trying to minimize the need for communications?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's always a, when you're trying to start something new, there's problems and trying to figure it out, because you have infantry commanders in charge of tankers now. They don't know how to use them.
Right.
I don't know. These guys can go clean their tanks. But that's pretty much how it started out for a while, and then we had snipers and mortar guys, and after a while, the commanders and the battalion commanders got used to, how do we use these guys? How do we utilize them? And then.
Did you feel a lot of friction between the different kinds of units?
No, not really. Actually, it was a very tight knit group of people.
So other than getting this together, was there anything else that you were doing at Fort Lewis at this time?
We were, once we got it all together, we, had the christening saying our units were now active again, and we're now the, 2-3 Infantry Stryker Brigade, Stryker Combat Team, I think is what it was. And, we just continued on with our training and laying down guidelines for the rest of the Stryker Brigades that they were going to bring up into the Army, kind of set out a guideline and a book and how this stuff's supposed to work.
Could you describe a little bit of those?
Yeah, they created an FM for it. I couldn't tell you what it is, but
That's all right.
there's a whole FM on the operations of the Stryker combat teams, and it was implementing the infantry guys, which are used to just drop us off here, run that way, do the fight, and then now we get to ride in a nice little vehicle. We don't have to walk so far. It's kind of a bonus. But other than that, it's kind of out of my hands. You know, that's more higher battalion stuff that I didn't really see. You know, implementing all the other things.
And then, about what time was this?
2001, I think. Yeah.
So would this be before 9/11 or
Yes.
afterwards? All
Yeah,
right.
it was before 9/11.
Could you talk me through sort of your military career up to 9/11 and then what happened then?
Up to 9/11. Let's see. Well, we started out. We pretty much when we had hard training because we wanted to get these units up and combat ready, and we trained all the time. We went to we went to Yakima training facility, which is a high altitude desert. We went there a lot. It's in Washington State. We went up there, did live fire exercises. We did all kinds of live. We had the Special Forces unit come and ask if they can borrow bullets because we had that kind of resources to do training.
Oh wow.
It was quite impressive. Yeah, we've got this stuff. If you give us some bullets, we'll train you guys on this, which was pretty cool. So, but then we had, we did that for a good couple of years of just heavy training, and then we went to JRTC, which is in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and then we were there for about a month, and then we went to NTC in Fort Irwin, California. We back to back those. We were home for 5 days, and then shipped right out to there for a month. During that month long in California is when 9/11. I'm sorry. Let me back that up again. 9/11 happened. We were at Fort Lewis. It was just before we went to NTC and JRTC. It happened. We were out in the field. Our first sergeant came out, and he pretty much, he told us what the Army or whoever put down for information. The 300,000 people were killed. The initial estimates of what had happened, and Fort Lewis locked down. We went from having just the normal 2 soldiers at a gate to having opposing tanks at the gates, with all the soldiers having grenades and the full-blown, like we were guarding a base in Iraq kind of a deal.
So full war standing.
Yeah, it went from, because your normal thing is a couple magazines of ammo for the M4s that you have on guard, just for mainly a show. I mean, you're not going to really use them. Unless something really happened, but it went from that to tanks and helicopters and the full-blown, military show of force on those bases. So, we were out in the field, and we had to come back to that. And, he came out, told us all this stuff. We hit the training really hard that day, came back out of the field, and we prepped up to go to war, because that's pretty much what everybody thought was going to happen. And, they came down, they said, we're going to NTC, or we're going to JRTC, we're going to NTC, and then we're going to probably go overseas.
Did you have any idea which country or where you might be going at that time?
We didn't have a clue, no, but the time frame in there, I'm a little off on the time frame from when we went, but Afghanistan happened, and then NTC happened, or we were in NTC, and that's when the Iraq War started. We put troops there, NTC, and then we were gone. I think 8 months later we were in Iraq.
Anything you want to talk about in that sort of lead up before deployment? Any special training or interesting things that may have happened?
No, because we had all the stuff that everything that we needed. Being the new unit to the Army, we got it all. We had everything. It was just, let's take our stuff and go overseas, and that's what anybody wanted. That's all we wanted to do. At that time, it was, let's get some revenge on whoever did this, because we didn't know what was going on. We're just, somebody blew up stuff, killed a whole bunch of Americans, let's do it. So that's where we were.
All right. Did you have any sort of furlough period or time off before deployment?
Yeah, we had, there was a couple months in between there, but our unit gave us like a week off pretty much. Spend time with your family, take care of your stuff, and then we got on the buses and went overseas.
When did you get your orders to go overseas?
Honestly, I couldn't even tell you. I mean, I don't even know if I had orders in hand.
So, could you describe some of the process of going to Iraq?
Let's see, going to Iraq, we had, they're calling them SRPs, or these stand-up things where you go and make sure that you're physically fit and mentally, and they go through all the stuff, dental and all this other stuff, and then pretty much you just jump on the plane. I mean, back then we didn't have any plans. We just went to war.
All right, so you get on the plane and you fly over, and then where did you go?
We went to Kuwait. We landed in Kuwait City, I think. Yeah, Kuwait City. We got on buses and we went up to a base just south of the border of Iraq. I can't remember what it was called, but there we waited for about a week for our vehicles to get there.
What did they have you do in the meantime while you were there?
Acclimatize, I guess. That's what they called it. I call it laying in air conditioning, but it was god-awful hot there. It was November, October, and it was still 100-something degrees, so.
What year?
What's that?
What year?
2003.
And then, did you have any relations or interactions with the local Kuwaitis while you were there?
No, not at all. No, we were strictly on our base. At that time, we didn't see anybody. We got on a bus. The bus had armed guards. They drove like crazy to get through the desert. It was the scariest ride I ever had on a bus. Reminded me of that movie where they couldn't go under 60 and they just had to, it blows up. That's kind of what it was like.
So then what happened after the acclimatization period?
Let's see, our vehicles showed up, and then apparently the Army figured out that they weren't so, what is it called? RPG proof.
Oh.
The RPGs, you see them on all the movies. It's the funny thing with the cone on the front that shoots a rocket. Apparently they didn't stop those so well, so we had to put this big cage around it. So that took a couple days. We had to mount them on there, and they had all these crazy rules. It's got to be there, and it's got to have this exact torque. I'm like, it's designed to blow off, so I don't know why we're torquing it, but whatever. And we went to a couple ranges, make sure our weapons were zero, and then we headed north.
All right. Could you describe some of the process of as you were going north, like things you saw along the way, or things that might have happened?
Heading north was that was interesting, because there's not a whole lot of people that live in the southern part of Iraq, and since we're new to any of this, we didn't get any guidelines of, what to expect. It was just, you got to start here and get to here. We're thinking guys are coming out of everywhere, it's just chaos and mayhem, and it was none of that. It was just a straight long trip, but there was no stopping because of the IEDs and stuff like that. And they didn't want to slow down for anything. If we lost a vehicle, it was pretty much, we had a truck with us, a semi with a flatbed. They just yanked that thing on there and they just took off. I mean, it was to the point where there was, we had a Stryker that broke down and they put it on the semi, and the guys that were in the Stryker were pulling security out of the Stryker on a semi. It was different. I mean, we had to. We lost a Humvee because they took a wrong turn. We had to go get them. They headed straight to Baghdad.
So did the whole convoy have to wait for that Humvee to?
Yeah, we had to. Well, it was. I don't even know whose Humvee it was. It wasn't one of ours. They just kind of fell in with us. And they hook a right, and we hooked a left in the fog, and we had to go back and get them. So, I mean, they started straight to Baghdad.
Was there problems with radio communication?
That's the Army's biggest problem, I think, at that time, because, we have, it's so weird how they work everything. There's so many different communication ways. Like if you're going to talk to the aircraft, you got to be on this channel, this single channel freak and all this other stuff to talk to these guys. And then if you want to talk to your guys, you got to be on this channel. Well, this other unit that fell in, they're on this channel. They're supposed to have your channel, but it doesn't always happen. And then we have they call them the FPCV2s or BFTs, which it's pretty much a really large GPS that populates your vehicles. Also, it has dots that has all of our vehicles and their vehicles, but ours and theirs aren't on the same channel. It's to be expected, you know. We're just jumping into something, so that's kind of how it happens. But then we ended up at, you know, once we got through that convoy, which was about 2 days or about a day and a half, that we got to the first base, which I think was called Anaconda. I think it was Anaconda, yeah.
And could you describe some of the time at Anaconda?
Oh, it was horrible. It was November, and it's the rainy season, and our feeling was the base didn't want us there, but they wanted us there, you know, because they shoved us in the farthest corner away from pretty much everything. Told us not to drive our Strykers down in the middle of any of the tents area, you know, where the chow hall and everything is that we need to get to, which is about a mile away from where we were. So, you know, and then they put us up in tents that leaked. They had the big spiders, the big camel spiders just crawling. We slept in our trucks for a month. You know, they had pallets down inside the tent, and oh, okay. Invaders. They put us down in these tents that had the pallets. The pallets were floating because there was that much water there.
Oh my.
Yeah, and then they decided to bring us out shower houses. Apparently we stunk at that point. And the mobile shower houses they brought had no hot water tanks in them in November. It was freezing at night, so you had this huge water tank that was on the back that was glazed with ice on the top. So taking a shower really wasn't top on your list at that point. It was really something you wanted.
This sounds like quite the temperature extreme if it was roasting in the daytime and freezing.
At that point in time, you know, the daytime had gotten down, and it's like a drastic change from Kuwait to Iraq, where we were at, because we were about in the middle.
All right.
And yeah, it was freezing at night and glazing over, and it was quite interesting.
Do you have any idea why they were keeping all the Stryker units so far away from everyone else?
Yeah, we're the infantry guys. We're just nothing but a bunch of ruffians, I guess.
Was it a different branch of service that had been operating?
It was like a combination of everybody. It's just, I don't think they knew what to do with us. I don't know if they even knew we were coming, but they really wanted us there at the point when, you know, they would get mortared and they would call us and we'd be out the gate before any of their guys even got their pants on. So, you know, and it got to the point where they wouldn't even call us. It just mortars would hit and we'd be out the gate. So they kind of liked having us around after a while.
So how long did you stay at Anaconda?
I think we were there for about a month and a half. So.
And what would you do generally on a day-to-day when you weren't being mortared?
You're looking at it. That's it.
So what would go on when you would go in response to a mortaring?
Apparently they had some cool guy stuff that could kind of sort of maybe figure out where it was coming from. That kind of sort of, because I'm pretty sure it picked up birds too, but we would head out the gate and they'd kind of direct us in the direction, and if we found, you know, 9 out of 10 times they were, you know, yeah, most of the time they were gone. I mean, it's not hard to set up a mortar, drop a couple rounds, and then just take off. They'd leave in the back of the trucks, just do it from the truck and then leave. But if we could catch them, I mean, they were caught. So.
All right. Where'd you go after Anaconda?
After Anaconda, we headed north up to Mosul. We relieved the 101st. They had the entire the whole 101st had the Mosul area, and just our battalion took over that area for them. It went from, God, I don't even know how many. They had soldiers everywhere to our couple hundred. Yeah, a couple thousand, but not nowhere near compared to how many they had. So.
Was it being used sort of as a staging area at that point?
No, that was downright. That was right in the middle of it. I mean, you're looking at, it was an hour from Fallujah, I think. So, I mean, that, you know, Fallujah, at that time, that was when the big Fallujah problem was. You know, all the Marines were getting their butts kicked. So.
How was communication back home throughout all of this? Did you have any ability to send
Yeah,
letters?
There was, I think there was a couple DSL phones, but mainly it was a couple Iraqi contractors had satellite phones, and then there was, I think, 5 or 6 computers that they had set up that were ran through Iraqi contractor of some kind. I mean, all of it was shady as all get out, but, you know, don't put anything important, just hi, I love you, and bye, and, you know, that was about it.
So what was the makeup of your unit? Did you see a lot of different racial integration, mixed gender, anything like that?
Oh yeah, we had every color, yeah. Black, white, purple, green. That's kind of how I think every unit in the Army, you know, this is active duty, so, you know, it's not northern Michigan where, you know, you get this group of guys and this group of guys and this group of guys. It was everybody from everywhere around the country, or someone from different countries. A couple of my good friends, I think one was from the Ukraine, one was from Germany. You know, they weren't even U.S. citizens, but they were sure as fighting with us, so.
As part of the coalition forces?
No, they were part of the U.S. Army.
Oh.
They were in my unit. They were. It's a very strange way that the U.S. works. You know, you can't. You know, you're not a citizen, but you can fight for the Army. You know, you can join the Army and fight all day long, but still have a little bit of problem getting your citizenship. I don't know how that works, but.
Did many of them achieve citizenship after they had done their tour?
I think most of them did. Yeah. I mean, you know, sometimes it falls into them not just pursuing it as hard as they can, but it should be easier. I mean, if you're at that point where you're defending the country, they should be part of it. So.
All right, so we had left off where you're about an hour outside of Fallujah. So what were you doing on a day-to-day sort of basis?
Every day we would go out and patrol for IEDs. That pretty much detailed driving around until we got blew up.
Did you have any sort of equipment to help try to detect IEDs?
Tires. I mean, honestly, at that point in the war, there was nothing. I mean, we didn't have anything. Our best option was to stay in the trucks and drive around until they set them off, because at that point, their IEDs really didn't affect the Strykers a whole lot. So.
Was there anything else you would do in addition to the IED checks?
We did a ton of raids. I mean, you know, we worked with Special Forces all the time. Different branches of the Special Forces, a conglomeration of Special Forces. And they would come up with a game plan, and we would go raid the house, neighborhood. We raided whole cities once. Villages, I guess. They called them cities. It was a village to me. It was interesting. It's a whole way of life over there.
So did you see the communication problems like sort of disappear when you're working with Special Forces as opposed to
once
with the
you
convoy?
once you get away from the rest of the Army and you can work just as your battalion, everything is pretty smooth sailing. You know, you don't have all these communication, you don't have all this outside stuff. You know, Special Forces, when we work with them, they just come down to our channels. They would work with our equipment, our stuff, so that there was no, you know, because they know the problems, so they just want to eliminate it.
Frequently, what would you be doing the raids for? Looking for insurgents? Or?
Yeah, we're looking for insurgents. A lot of times it was, this guy is supposed to be a weapons dealer, you know, so we'd raid his house and try to find weapons. You know, a whole lot of the time there wasn't anything there. I mean, I wouldn't keep my weapons at my house if I was selling them. But it's one of those things. I mean, every time we would, the funny part is you know, we'd do these patrols every day, and we always stopped at, like, there's a bread store. You know, they sold the flatbread stuff. We would stop there every day. You know, it was like $3. We could feed the whole platoon with this bread. Well, that guy was selling weapons out of the back of his store for the insurgents. One day, I guess a landmine or something slipped off a desk or something. The whole backside of the bread store was gone. It's that kind of a war.
So it sounds like you're saying you have a lot more contact with the civilian and insurgent population. Did you have any sort of noteworthy experiences like the bread store incident?
It's more than you could ever put on tape.
Any particularly noteworthy ones you'd want to maybe highlight?
I don't noteworthy like
Anything that stands out to you, something that like you remember?
well, I mean, we did some. It was more of a show of force that we would do downtown Mosul. It was a very large marketplace. I mean, just like what was that movie? Black Hawk Down. Where they're playing the music, you can hear the prayer song in the background. The guys walking around, just people wandering around the thing, and then the prayer music starts playing, and then everybody's gone. They just disappear out of the streets. That would happen to us. It's happened to us a couple times. That's the eeriest feeling I've ever had in my life. We dismounted our Strykers. We're wandering around, pretty much just trying to let them know, hey, we're here. And prayer music started going off. It was one of their prayer times, and it was just tumbleweeds rolling through the town. It was dead quiet. There's nobody in town. That's creepy.
Definitely. So, how long were you in Mosul for?
The rest of it, we were there for 9-10 months, something like that.
All right. Did you see the nature of the conflict change over that period of time while you were there?
Not horribly, no, because we were still fighting, Saddam's whatever army they were, his elite special forces or whatever they were supposed to be. I mean, when we got there, we were fighting those guys. They were doing the mortar attacks and the random gunfire fights that we'd get into, and then the insurgents, the Taliban or whatever insurgent group they were, or people that just didn't want us there, they were doing the IEDs, and it was kind of all just jumbled together, so it kind of stayed the same way the whole time.
So when it gets towards the end of your 9 months in Mosul, how did things change for you? Did they send you further back? Did they just, throw you on a plane one day and ship you out?
We saw a plane one day and shipped us out. Yeah, pretty much. We had about a 2-week period where the new unit came in. We started handing over our Strykers. We showed them, this is what we do. You can do whatever you want, but this is working for us. And we started handing them our Strykers, our weapons, well, not our weapons, but all of our cruisers and heavy weapons and all that stuff. We started signing those over with those guys, and did a couple of ride-arounds with them, and then we were sent over to Diamondback, the airfield, which is just across the Tigris River, and we were out of there. So,
did you have much forewarning that you were?
Oh yeah, we knew when we were roughly when we were leaving. Yeah,
Oh,
it was.
okay.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it was. They had at least figured out dates by then.
Did you see any dramatic changes in the new units coming in for the training they might have had?
No, not really. No, they were just as new as we were, so they were gung ho. This is what we're going to do, blah blah. And I expect that from any new unit. When we just started a war, nowadays we're so far into the wars that units have had people go there. They've come back. They've got experienced leaders. They can tell their guys what's going on. In 03, the guys were just 04. The guys were just showing up. What do we do? Where do we go? Where's the fight?
Yeah.
It's everywhere, guys. It's all over.
All right. So did anything happen on the trip back to Diamondback? Was it as a...
One of our planes got shot down. They hit it with an RPG, I think, on the takeoff. They had to do an emergency landing about halfway between us and Kuwait, so that was kind of different. It didn't go off, I guess is what saved the plane, so it just hit it, took the engine out, and they had to land, so.
What kind of plane was it?
C-130, yeah.
All right. And how long did you stay in Diamondback?
We were there for, about a week, I think. So.
Anything happen while you were there?
Just the standard mortar attacks.
Were you still attached to Strykers at that point? Or?
No, we'd pretty much just had our Kevlar and a weapon with like a magazine, I think is all we had, so.
All right. So how was the homecoming? What was it after you had made it back from Diamond?
The homecoming was pretty good. I mean, it was very long. It was very long because they wanted to turn all the weapons in. We had to do 100% accountability and all this stuff before we could see our families, which I understand how they do it, but I don't know why they're doing it. But you're home. I want to see I want to see my family.
Could you go through some of that process of the accountability?
Yeah, you pretty much stand on line for hours. Weapon in hand, you get up to the arms room and you read off or you hand them their weapon, they read off the number and sign a paper. But, once everybody turns in, it's not just your weapon, it's your night vision or whatever the Army's needing to account for that's a sensitive item. They got to go and take all of them in, do a count on them, make sure every single one's there, and if they're missing anything, it's, we're gonna shut it down until we find it. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Just takes hours because you got to read every single serial number off, and we're 200 and some people. That's a lot of weapons alone. So
Definitely. So after accountability, then did you have a?
Yeah, we had they bussed us over to one of the, I think it was the indoors basketball courts. All the family was on the bleachers and stuff, and they marched us in. And they had to do their long spiels that every single general or major or colonel feels they need to do, which nobody cares. I mean, it's just, it's for them, I think, at that point. And then they released you to your family, so.
And then how long did you have with your family before you had to come back?
I think we all took leave. I mean, I think we were allowed to take, I think up to a month. I'm not sure, I can't remember now, but I think it was almost up to a month. So.
What did you do with your time off?
Well, let's see. My wife had. I was getting out. At that point, I hadn't figured out what I wanted to do. I was going to get out of the Army, and my wife had moved back to Michigan. Well, to Michigan. She was from Washington, and she was living with my parents, so she wasn't even there when I came home. Her mom was there, and her sister and some other friends I knew were there, and then. It took about 3-4 days before my wife could get off of her job to get the flight out to Washington. So.
When did you meet your wife? Was that when you were in the service or before?
Yeah, I met her actually in the barracks. One of her sister was dating one of the guys in my unit, and my wife had come home from basic training or AIT or something. She's in the Army also. And her sister and another friend were going to go out dancing, and I guess one of the friends hurt herself, so they were looking for somebody else to go out partying with them, I guess, and I ended up being that guy. So.
Did you get married before you had deployed then?
Yes. Yeah, we got married a couple months before I deployed, so we were going to wait, until, we got all of our ducks in a row, I guess, for, money and then get our life figured out where we're going in direction, because my wife was still going to school. But since we were deploying, being married is kind of the way to go if you have anything you want to handle back at home. So we got married early, and then we had a wedding when we came back about a year later.
Oh, all right. So after that month of leave, what happened then?
I took about 2 weeks. I think it was 2 weeks, and then I pretty much started doing my out processing, make sure all my gear was turned in, getting all the paperwork signed, to medical and all this stuff, go through the VA and all the out briefings. And then I pretty much, my dad flew out there, and we drove my 2 vehicles back to Michigan.
All right. And what brings us to today? What have you been doing with the Guard since then?
Well, see, so I was injured in Iraq by an IED. I pretty much couldn't do infantry anymore. My body just isn't gonna hang with that. But I didn't feel that my service was complete. You know, I still had more to give to the Army. If it wasn't, you know, on the front line fighting, it was at least my knowledge of combat and weapons tactics and that kind of stuff that I could at least train soldiers in it. So I got out and joined the National Guard. I came to the 1434th Engineer Unit out of Grayling, Michigan, and I've been there for since '05, and I've pretty much held every position you could think of there too. We deployed once with them to Iraq, again to Baghdad.
And did you go with them on the deployment?
Yep. Yeah, I was the operations NCO then, or assistant operations NCO.
So what was different about the second time going back to Iraq from the first time?
Well, minus the fact that, you know, I mean, the two complete changes in MOS is your job. It's hard to describe. I mean, it angers me to even be over there anymore, because it's almost as if we wasted our time, because it doesn't appear that they care enough to change their country to fix it. You know, we ousted a dictator and tried to give them a government somewhat like ours, where, you know, you got some freedoms and all this stuff, and you know, they don't really care is the impression I get. I mean, I'm sure some people do, and you know, on a majority, they, you know, in my eyes, they just don't have the effort to or the will to change the way that their country is. You know, they honestly, I mean, like, if I were to live, you know, if I lived, you know, at my house here in the U.S. and somebody was selling drugs or guns, or, you know, a terrorist organization lived right next door to me, I'm pretty sure I would take and do whatever part I could to stop that. They don't really do that. You know, there could be a terrorist ring here and you live next to it, and they hide in their house. They just are oblivious to it, even though they know it's there, because during many of our raids, we would go around to their houses and, you know, we would ask them if they know anything, and they pretty much, the interpreters would tell us that they know it was there, but they feared for their life. Like, well, tell somebody. I mean, it's not hard, but I mean, it's a whole nother thought process they have over there.
So what were you doing on the second deployment?
We were doing construction missions. We would go out to certain these bases and build. A lot of times we build police stations or army-style barracks type things for either the local military or the local army, or the local police. Kind of like a talk of an operation place for them. You know, there would be seating and maybe a projector, some actual bathrooms, a shower, and you know, some office spaces for them to work out of. Sometimes we built chow halls. We built, you know, a lot of random things that, you know, may have helped, but not really. So.
Did you have a different set of contact with the civilian population this time around?
I suppose, I guess. Yeah, I'm not even going to get into that.
It's all right. And how long were you deployed this time?
For 8 months. It was a total of a year with two months of training, lead up and return home. So.
All right. Did you have any specialized training for this deployment before you had gone?
Yes and no. For me, no. For my unit, yes, because, you know, they're a construction unit, so the standard stuff that I know of, you know, combat tactics and stuff like that, is their specialized training that they got or received, and we were in Fort McCoy, Wisconsin for a month or so. I can't remember how long, and that's where they received all their training. You know, combat, convoys, how to clear a room, pretty much the stuff that the infantry does all day long. So,
What would you have been doing while they were receiving that training?
Since I was operations, I was kind of there. I wasn't really doing a whole lot. I mean, I was setting up things. We were doing fake trip tickets for the convoys, list of people who's on the vehicles, and so they can keep track of overseas how who's there, what vehicles you have, all the stuff about them. So not a whole lot over there because it's pretty organized and ran by Fort McCoy. So.
And then, what were the different kind of, or no, you've already said what kind of construction projects you did, I'm sorry. Anything else while you were there on the second deployment that you would do?
For me, I got tired of running operations because it was very mundane for the type of operations that I'm used to. So, if we didn't have anything that was going on, if we didn't have convoys coming in and going, if there was nothing major for us to do, I would go down to supply or I would go to maintenance. I helped them fix a lot of their vehicles, break a couple of them, I think, but they'll never let the Bobcat down. But
Oh, mind sharing that one?
yeah, well, we had a Bobcat that was broken, and it had some servo motors that went out. And I tried to put in a request. We tried to get some servo motors in. Well, apparently, since I ordered 2 of them, they thought I only needed 1. So we'd get it back, and then it didn't work because I did need 2 of them. And it was mainly the first sergeant and the maintenance guys, send an infantry guy down to work on a vehicle, you get nothing but broken parts. It was kind of one of those things, so. But yeah, I mean, that poor thing never got fixed, so. But other than that, I mean, I fixed a lot of stuff with those guys. If we needed anything, I was that go-to guy. I have no problems going to anybody and trying to find something. I'll go to a general. I don't care if he's got a barbecue I want. So that was kind of where we were, being on the big fob that we were. So other than that, I really was pretty that last mission one was lax. So.
All right. What was the lead up to coming back from that one? Did anything change in the weeks leading up to the return?
Yeah, it was chaos and mayhem trying to turn in vehicles and because from when I went over the first time, you went with all your vehicles, you went with all your equipment, you went with everything you needed. You went with. Well, the way they've got it now is you go there with nothing. They give you all the stuff, and then you got to give it back.
What's the time frame for this? What was the year? Sorry, I forgot.
Oh, it was 2009, 2010.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they give you, and you got to give it back. Well, when they give it to you, it's usually broken, and when you give it back, they want it fixed. I don't know how that works because it's broken when you get it, but it's very weird. So, but yeah, that takes a good 2-3 months or 2-3 weeks to get the stuff turned in, turned in, clear all your paperwork, your barracks. You gotta clear all that stuff, and then they send you over, and you pretty much get on the plane and you fly out of there to Kuwait, which is kind of cool. You don't have to wait around there. It's just leave your house, slide over to the airfield, and leave. So.
All right. And then the second homecoming, was it much different than the first?
Yeah, I mean that was in Michigan here. It was at the football field in Grayling. That was a lot different. I mean, it was pretty much we walked onto the field, and then the family was just right on you. There was no screwing around with generals and everybody just saying all this stuff. And that's pretty much, these are your family, go see them. I mean, there was a lot of news reporters there. I guess it was a big deal for Michigan to have us come back. I don't know if we were one of the bigger units that left or whatnot, but there was a lot of news were there. I think everybody was on TV, so it was pretty cool.
Now, speaking of news reporters and the like, did you have any sort of contact as a military person with the civilian population after your return, positive or negative?
No, I mean, no, I try not to talk to any. I usually put my foot in my mouth, so not really. No, this would be it right here. No, on a whole, the U.S. in general has just been great for every single soldier. I mean, it makes you want to come home. It makes you want to be a soldier because the U.S. cares still. 10 years later, they still care. So it's kind of cool.
So what did you do then after coming home from the second deployment?
Not a darn thing for about about 3 weeks. I went home and I did nothing. It was
Nothing
kind of
is
nice.
a beautiful thing.
It is beautiful.
And then after that, did you start doing more stuff with the
I
guard?
went back to work, and we did the guard thing, and being operations, I still had a lot of little things that had to be handled, so I was still quite more active than you would be for a normal, normal guard. Like I had to go to Wisconsin and sign for, we had inventory and sign for all of our equipment that came back in connexes and the vehicles that we got back that we did send, and yeah, I mean, receiving stuff back in, we had to make sure that it was all ducks in a row, so it was a little bit more involved, but mainly I went back to work.
And then anything happened from then until now?
Not really. I mean, we went to El Salvador last year, I think it was. Yeah, last year.
What'd you do while you were in El Salvador?
Wasted the U.S. money. We did a very good deed, but a very poorly planned out deed. We built, I think, 4 or 5 schoolhouses for the El Salvadorian children. I mean, it was a great thing that we did for them. Their houses were huts. I mean, their school was a hut, some concrete walls. We built them very nice for 3-4 room schoolhouses, steel roofs. They're hurricane proof. Electricity, air conditioning, I think they had in them. They're very nice, but we spent a lot of money that, it was several $1 million. I can't even remember what I had the amount. It was a lot of money for what would it cost us to just contract it out. It would have been cheaper. But we got training. I guess you could chalk it up for training. So we did one hell of a job. The unit that was in charge of overseeing that whole project gave us a lot of props. They were very far behind when we showed up, and they were very far ahead when we left.
Is this the kind of project that the guard will undertake regularly?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Every couple years they try to get you to a different country so you can get hands-on training in the things that we were supposed to do. So, I mean, a couple years before that we went to Italy. I did not go on that one, but they went to Italy and they upgraded some bases there, pools and other stuff like that.
All right. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I don't have anything.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
No
It's
problem.
greatly appreciated.